this tutorial we are going to talk about microcement. You know that it is absolutely fashionable. Decorators have made it fashionable because it gives them many solutions, first because you can put it on any surface, and second because it allows you, being on any surface, to work with it on floors, walls, bathtubs, ceilings, whatever you want. It is a multiple solution, does not require transforming what you have below. It is a coating. What happens is that at the same time as it is cement, it is very hard, resists water, resists footprints, and this gives us many possibilities of finishes also from the point of view of use. For example, in this video we are going to work on tiles. Go figure, you have a bathroom and you are tired of your tiles because they have a style that you don't like. You cover it with this, and you make a bathroom totally different that has nothing to do with what you had until now. Things to know about the microcement before starting: we are going to work with a system that is from the Monto brand. I tell you this because each manufacturer has a way of organizing their product, and of applying it, and it is important that with the one you work with, you need to focus not only in the way you are mixing and preparing the products, but also on the way of the application according to the surface where you are going to do it. That is the first rule. Second important rule: we are going to apply it by playing with concepts that are not always usual in the professional world. We can go one step further, and that is why we have also chosen a system that allows us to play with finishes and colors that are not so common, and that if we want to decorate, we can also consider it as a very attractive decorative solution. I'm going to do this tutorial myself, and I have to say this too, because we have a partner, who you already know from other tutorials, our partner called, who is a professional at this. My relationship with the putty knife is limited. So I wanted to do it, because I wanted to see if this really is too difficult for a DIYer. This way you will see it and measure it. Do you like the system but find it very difficult? Well, call a professional. There are great professionals who can apply it for you. If you see it is easy for you what I do, because you are going to see the hands of someone who is not a regular user of a trowel work. You see here the different phases of the application on tiles. What is the first concept? If I have to apply a finish like this on tile, which have no pore, I need to give it the adhesion necessary to support the microcement. I am going to do this directly, applying a special primer that has a good grip, that allows it to be fixed very good. Even so, as I have already told you, I am not a great trowel expert, but I found it interesting. When I was doing tests, I worked much better, when using a fiberglass mesh underneath. These meshes are mainly used on other surfaces, for example when we are working in floors, these meshes are placed on top of the first layer of cement, we put the mesh and then we put the following cement on top. Why? Because it gives a certain reinforcement to the cement that gives consistency. I don't really need this consistency here because the tile perfectly receives the microcement, but it is comfortable to work. How do we put it? The first thing is to prepare the base, which is a concrete bonding primer preparation. This primer gives us a good grip. We are going to prepare it and apply it directly, already with the mesh. It is a fairly thick primer, which is exactly what makes it easier for us to place the mesh without any difficulty. We place the mesh well, and we are done finish priming. The mesh has a certain movement, but remains perfectly adhered. With this, we have covered the first part of the system. We have done the primer part. With these two products we have mixed our first coat. Second step, we are going to directly apply a special microcement for the background. That microcement that serves us, in thick texture to cover all the imperfections that the wall has. As long as there are imperfections I will have to continue giving layers of thick texture. This is the logic of this application. The bucket has the powder and mix it with the resin. They come perfectly measured to dose and to beat inside the bucket itself. As we have already been using products to prepare these tests, we are doing partial dosages. You should keep things simple, just throw all the products and beat them. We always put the resin first, then the powder, and we beat well. It is important to use a mechanical mixer because it will be very difficult to do by hand. Whisk until you have a smooth and homogeneous consistency. To apply the microcement, we use this type of stucco trowel. They have rounded corners, are made of stainless steel and make the application very comfortable. We have already given the first layer of microcement as a background to our tiles. It will look like this. This is the step that is already prepared and has already perfectly dried, but the mesh below still shows a little. You still need one more undercoat. We will be layering the surface until it is perfectly regular. From there we start with the next step. A tip: if I apply a lot of material to accelerate, I will have a slightly uneven surface. That forces me later to sand a lot. Sanding is generally heavier than applying. My advice is to always apply layers that are not too heavy, those that you see that you control well with the trowel, so that they fit you flat, than trying to do it all at once and then you have to sand too much. This is an infallible trick. Try not to have globs. Always avoid having globs dry on the trowel, if not, you will put them directly when applying it.
Evita siempre que te queden pegotes secos en la llana, porque si no, los vas a poner directamente al aplicarlo.
When we apply material with the trowel, it is very normal that you will have burrs, especially if we are overloading the trowel. In general, nothing happens because although it has small burrs, the final effect, especially on the wall, is not ugly. When we finish, nothing happens because it has areas where after sanding or burnishing, we will have special shines and they will give a certain touch of personality. Still, if we want to match it, that's what we have sandpaper for. This is microcement and we must always sand microcement hard enough. The possibilities I have is to do it by hand and with a lot of patience, or directly rent a drywall sander, which is the way you work quickly and so it will be very simple. I'm going to sand this paste that I just applied. Then don't tell me I'm a botcher. We are working on samples, with which we are free to work however we want, but of course, under normal conditions, never sand on surfaces that are still drying. When we are sanding, with the naked eye, it looks more marked, because the sandpaper leaves residue and all the sanded areas are left with marks. This is noticeable to the touch. It is much softer, and although you see these black lines, which are from the sandpaper, the irregular areas have completely disappeared. Now we are going to give it the finishing microcement. When we have applied the microcement background as a base, that is when we start the finish. Here we have to understand the concept, and I will explain what changes we have implemented regarding the more traditional approach in the way of applying it. When we use microcement as a finissi, which is already a much finer material, we do it for two reasons. First, because what we are doing is finishing covering any imperfections that we have left in the thickest layer. With this we already make a fine laying that will already admit a much more careful finish, but also, we are already able to incorporate the color, or not, because that is where we can decide what we want. On this side we have applied the finishing microcement with a white color, because we are going to play with a technique, which is to apply a color directly on top, but already directly with spatula, making it very thin, dragging it, so that a certain transparency of this color remains below it. In this case we have worked, for example, directly on white with green pigments. We have freely mixed, we have bought some pigments and we have mixed them directly with the microcement. We apply it by playing a little with the background and it gives a finish like this. In this case, we will only make the preparation. When I told you before that we were using a system and I told you this is a specific system from some manufacturers, for example Monto. Why have we chosen it? For everything that you can do with the resins that we incorporate when making the microcement mix for the finish, like choose colors. You have a color chart, and here you do not have to go to the traditional system that always has a gray finish. You can choose the color that the card offers you. The one you like the most, as we have done, you can choose a pigment to taste and mix it. Let's see how it is applied and let's see how to work with it. We will a small amount of material on the trowel, so as not to fall into the temptation of carrying too much. This application still makes the white a little transparent. We have some small marks of the imperfections that the microcement of the background may have, but you will see that the effect it does when you varnish is going to be very beautiful. We will now make the application here, as I was saying, giving it color. The technique is different because what I am going to do here is apply very little microcement and move in another way the trowel so that some decorative effects remain. Let's see how it turns out. You see that what we are following is a technique very similar to stucco finishes. We are giving it very little load, causing it to be marked as a certain glaze, that is to your liking. Do not worry about the most loaded areas, because when the microcement is dry, we will tone it a little with sanding. Let's recap because this is a system and therefore it has several steps. Remember that we have started by preparing the support. We have put a primer and a mesh so that it will hold well. The first layer, which has been the next step, is the one we apply with the background microcement. We have given 2 layers. Keep giving layers until it is perfectly clear that all your surface is ready and totally flat to start working. Then we have started working with the finishing microcement. In this case we have given it color. Until now we have done the following. We have given, on the layer that we already had prepared, this layer of blue. We have given this same layer of blue, with the same technique that you have already seen, on this one, which also had a blue background, to see how it looks when we are working in monochrome, with a single color, but nuancing it, working a little with the trowel. Now we are going to the last phase, which is fundamental, because until we complete it, this seems a bit off. How can we make the colors stand out? Well, as it has always been done in the painting, giving it a final coat of varnish that will highlight the colors and, of course, will protect all the paint that we have given. We are going to varnish it in our case with a polyurethane varnish. It is a varnish that we have chosen, especially strong, because we are talking about making a finish in a bathroom, or a kitchen. We are on tiles, and that is why we wanted to do it with a type of varnish that is resistant, and has a very hard finish. We are going to apply it with a roller like this, which is used for synthetic paints, and we are going to give it in a very stretched and without insisting, because we are in danger of ending up altering the surface as well. As we have to apply it very carefully, we will have the precaution of draining the roller in the drawer. It is not essential that you always finish with this varnish. You can even do it with a stucco wax, because when it is a less exposed place, this protects it, and also gives it that shine and that important final finish. We are going to give it only one layer. If you need more, when it has dried you give it a second layer as stretched out.
Si necesitas más, cuando haya secado, le das una segunda mano igual de tendida.
When we apply the varnish and especially when it is drying, you are going to see that the colors that you have applied come out and really gain all the strength that we wanted to give them. Here we have the 3 finishes that we have tested, the traditional one, which is applying the last layers with the same color. This one that we have created, which is playing with different colors in the final application, and the one we have done by directly incorporating a pigment into the resin, to see what happened to us. These are finishes that look great, but it depends on your own creativity and imagination. Respect these steps that we have followed in every application of the microcement system, because the technique must be follow creativity as much as you want. Thank you very much for your likes and thanks for subscribing to our channel.